Good morning, and thank you very much. It is such an honor to be here. So, as I was preparing for this talk, I was thinking about what has guided a lot of the business decisions and career decisions that I've made in my life. And I have one North Star, and that's people. Shoppers, consumers, customers, users, understanding where people have been, where they are, and where they are going. But today, there is so much change, and that rate and pace of change is almost hard to keep up with. I know I feel that, and I know that my team feels that. One example of this, by 2020, there will actually be the majority of the millennial population in high-growth markets, high-growth urban markets, such as Southeast Asia, India, Africa, and Brazil. This is where the majority of the millennial population will live. And how much time, I had to ask myself, have I spent studying these environments and studying these markets and studying these people? So I want to dimensionalize for you this rate and pace of change. We are currently going through the fastest shift in history, the fastest technological shift in history, and that is the shift to mobile. And when you think about shifts, usually shifts are actually over the course of hundreds of years, over eras. Two tectonic plates slowly rubbing together and maybe at some point in time creating change. This particular shift that we are going through right now is more like a meteor or an asteroid careening towards the Earth. To dimensionalize that in terms of numbers, 38, 14, 4, and 2. It took 38 years for radio to hit 50 million users. It took 14 years for TV to hit 50 million viewers. It took 4 years for the web to hit 50 million users, and it took 2 years for mobile to hit 50 million users. You know all these numbers, but when you see them condensed together, you start to understand the rate and pace of that change. And how we prepare for that, how we stand up, how we help clients, how we help consumers, how we prepare for this consumer evolution is critically important. So seemingly obvious or deceptively simple, mobile has forever changed the world. People have experienced the mobile mindset shift. So my team, on my team, there is an amazing group of people called Facebook IQ, and they specifically focus on understanding and dimensionalizing these changes in people. And I'm actually going to zoom out for a moment and think about it in terms of 4 macro shifts that are occurring within this evolution to mobile. And then I'm going to go a little bit deeper into each of these areas for some sub-trends. So first and foremost, blurring boundaries. Gender lines are blurring. Sex, what is sexy, the traditional definitions actually no longer apply. Technology has enabled people to explore their true identities and to fluidly self-identify in ways that they have never been able to do before. Now, what does that mean for us as marketers? Well, interestingly enough, this change has been coming. This change around the concept of gender, this change around the concept of parenting, this change around the concept of culture has been brewing for many, many years. But by the time we hit 2020, this will actually move from niche to norm. Now, today is actually my husband's birthday, and we had a bit of a laugh over this particular trend because good news for us, both he and myself, life is not over after 40. We did a little high five this morning. And the thing that's also interesting is that while life is not over after 40, the concept of aging is. So this idea of retirement is actually becoming obsolete as people live longer, more full lives. Now, again, what does that mean for us as marketers? Interestingly enough, the concept of retirement has been going away for a long period of time outside of the West. But inside of the West, we are now starting to adopt this. And it requires us to think differently about who we are targeting and actually who our customers are. For example, rethinking the way that you look at baby boomers and the top of Generation X is critically important. Because these people, potentially myself included in that I will not share my age, are just starting to do their best work yet. So what can you do? How do we prepare? The first thing that you need to do is consider who your spokespeople are. Do they reflect the customers you have or the customers you want? How do you make sure that those spokespeople actually can help you change the conversation and change the dialogue? Secondly, do a global audit of every single image in your library. Images, video, content. Does it reflect the new world order in this connected world? And last but not least, review pronouns. They just might want to be called they. So, moving to the next trend. If you are like me, you actually feel the tension each and every day of trying to balance acting locally and scaling globally. Both are growing. Global is growing and local is growing. They are not mutually exclusive. But here's the tension. The reality is that people are increasingly placing value on local commerce and on local culture. But at the same time, as the world becomes more connected, as the world goes online through mobile, they are becoming more globally minded. So, what can you do? First and foremost, find new ways of using technology to localize your business. Secondly, really start to use mobile to expand to new, high-growth emerging markets. Consider the expansion to cross-border trade. Look at things like the cross-border insights finder that we have that can help you identify where that next market of opportunity is. And last but not least, localize, localize, localize. Use dynamic solutions, dynamic technical solutions, to consider variations in price, to consider variations in features, to consider variations in distribution, even the look and feel of the product as a whole. Second macro trend, the rise of the mobile economy. We have been talking about the path to purchase and its changing dynamics probably for the last 20 years. And interestingly enough, it is now upon us. For mobile, and in particular for feed-based environments, products find people. People do not find products. I'll say that one more time. In feed-based environments, increasingly, products find people, people do not find products. And that's because discovery, consideration, and purchase all happen in one moment, on one surface, in one device. This is the most highly personalized experience we have ever had, and the expectations are even greater. So the change to the path to purchase is upon us, and by 2020, over half the world will be making purchases online. Half the world, 3.5 billion people. Majority of you in this room are mobile thought leaders. You are in the right business. If over half the purchases will be made online and the world is increasingly going mobile, that means that the majority of those purchases also will be on mobile. So, why is this important? I mentioned that discovery, consideration, and purchase are all happening in one place. if you think about the path to purchase, it is not just condensing, it's actually collapsing. And people are using things like mobile content and mobile ads that are shoppable or that enable purchase to find that speed and that momentum that they are looking for in the frictionless future. So this is great news. From a business brand marketing perspective, we have been wanting to have faster conversions. We've been wanting to create that in the academic world that we live in, but also in the executionary world that we live in. On the flip side, consumers, shoppers, customers, people, they are demanding a shorter journey from discovery to the closeout of purchase. Things that we can do. Reimagine mobile, and in particular mobile ads, as shoppable storefronts. Secondarily, think about how many clicks it takes to get to purchase. And take at least one out. If you're at 3 clicks and you can optimize for 1, that will absolutely improve your experience. And then finally, test where your buy button is. Is it intuitive? Is it in the right place? Doing just these simple actions will actually help build your business and also create a better pathway for people. Price. Price is losing its power. Today in the mobile world, where everyone expects more choice and faster fulfillment, convenience is actually in high demand. Now, in a world where there's one-click buying, like we just discussed, and everything's on demand, people will not just pay for ease, they will base their decisions on it. They will base their decisions on ease. And in fact, people are now tapping the buy button more based on convenience, based on the data and research that we have. So, why is this important? Because actually, when there is friction in the process, when there is more inconvenience, people are willing to abandon their cart even if the price is beneficial and or better than someplace else that they could have gotten it. And this is why price is ultimately losing its power. So, how do we prepare? What do we do? First and foremost, measure actions taken online and offline. Measure across channels, and measure from impressions to conversion. In particular, in my own marketing org, this is the learning agenda that we have set forth so that we can continue to optimize the customer experience, the customer journey for where people are today and how they want to engage. Raise your hand, little audience participation, if the sound of the phone ringing is just slightly irritating to you now. Right? It's actually more people than I thought, which is kind of a relief because I was like, what happens if no one actually raises their hand? So that is not surprising. You've probably also noticed, though, that the phone is ringing a little bit less than it was before. Well, that's because messaging is on the rise. And it's on the rise across every single generation. Things that you certainly know. But by 2020, over 80% of the world will be using messaging apps. Now that is going to completely change again the path to purchase. Because what people will start to do is utilize messaging apps as their mobile compass to direct them to businesses. And their expectations are rising and will continue to rise in terms of what that engagement will be. The relationship between people and businesses in the messaging world is one where they want to check for store hours, they want to provide feedback, they want to be able to understand what inventory is available. all in one environment. Now, I heard before something along the lines of last year everyone was talking about bots. I have something about bots in here. I'm prepared for that. So the point here is not actually that everyone should have a bot. And I think that was probably the point from the last panel. The point is that you actually need to test and learn to understand how bots and how machine learning can help streamline the processes and the communication and the engagement between people and businesses in the world of messaging. So that's what I highly encourage you to do. So it's not like 10 years ago or 15 years ago where everyone needed to build an application, and that is absolutely not what I'm sending you forth to do. But the testing and learn piece is critically important because of the size and scale that we are going to get to for organic business interactions between people and businesses on messaging in the future. The third macro shift, multisensory multipliers. Too long, didn't read. We talked about how game-changing mobile is. As people are exposed to more content and consuming more content, they are actually consuming it faster and they are retaining its value. Now, what's interesting about this trend in particular for me is that it's almost Darwinian. So what do I mean by that? Our brains have actually learned to speed up. As we scroll through content, we are consuming it at a faster pace than ever before, and we are recalling that content. Now, what's also interesting is that our attention spans now match that of a goldfish, which I found to be very interesting when spending some time with the team on this. And when you think about the future, not just 2020, but you think about 2025 and 2030 and beyond, the speed with which content is consumed, the ability to retain and recall it, and attention for younger generations multiplies. So the future is going to be fast, faster. It is going to be exceptionally fast. And we need to consider what kind of content are we creating, bite-sized content, in order to feed this insatiable appetite and meet people where they are today. The next one, the rise of mobile video. So you've seen this on our platform, and you've seen this on many other platforms. Over the last decade, Facebook has moved from very much a text-based platform to one that is photo-based to now one that is video-based. And this is actually not surprising because the neuroscience work that we have today shows that video is more encapturing than anything else. And when you look at the data that projects that over 70% of all mobile traffic will be mobile video, it is quite possibly hard to deny. The thing to consider, though, is how people are evolving their media consumption habits in watching video on mobile. And what we're seeing rise is 3 different ways of consuming mobile video. The first one is on the go. Very snackable, bite-sized content, whenever, wherever you are. The second one is leaning in, really making sure that, or leaning forward, really making sure that there is some sort of interactivity around that video in particular. And the last one, and this is something that has evolved really over the course of the last couple of years, is the ability to lean back and consume content over the course of multiple hours at times, looking at your mobile device. So if there are any publishers in the room, one thing that I find to be really interesting is how do you actually program for those 3 very distinct, discrete ways that viewing consumption is starting to evolve. All right. the last macro trend, the mobile command center. And this really connects the world back to the first insight that we started with, that by the year 2020, the majority of the millennial population will actually be in high growth markets. So, solely mobile. 3 billion people will come online over the course of the next couple of years, and they will come online solely through mobile. At the same time, we are seeing currently in developed markets this migration to mobile as the mobile command center. One where people are actually managing their physical world and their digital world on the phone. But in the markets that are solely mobile and coming online, leapfrogging desktop completely, there's a new generation emerging. Not the generation that we've known as digital natives, but the generation that we will now know as mobile natives. There will be for millions of people, the internet will only exist through their phone. And what I particularly love is that this connectivity and the connectivity that is provided through the mobile phone is going to unleash the entrepreneurial and innovative spirit that we will see around the world. And here is an example.
Nataka kuget smartphone yangu mwenyewe. I need to connect with my friends. Unasikia naweza pata market pale kwa internet, niuze hizi vitu naona kwa shamba. To do this, decide to form a savings group.
I will never forget the day my brother gave me his old mobile. And all of a sudden, I had my own personal internet. I was so happy, so excited. It felt like I was one of the coolest kids in school. The first thing I did was to set up Facebook.
That's not the end of the video, but that's it. He just set up Facebook. It's like, we're done, drop the mic. All right, I'll see you guys at the happy hour. I think you get where I'm going with the video. I'll move on to the next trend. Everything connected. So, another, and I promise last, audience participation question. Who locked their door today with their phone? Anyone? Again, a little, oh, nice, very nice. I did not, I used a key and I waved to my son. What is interesting is that the Internet of Things, while possibly slow to get momentum, is actually going to pick up, and there will be over 1 trillion devices that are connected. That's particularly important because we need to rethink the concept of mobile, the definition of mobile. And the data that this provides us access to will allow us to enhance the relevancy with which we create experiences for people. The other thing that's interesting, though, is that not every single person and not every single market will use intelligent devices in the same way. So we have to be thoughtful about how we localize these experiences in the future. But again, get ready to reconsider what the definition of mobile actually means. Building on mobile. And I would actually increasingly say that it is about building of mobile. In this open and connected community, the world will be built on the back of mobile. It has been being built on the back of mobile. It will continue to be built on the back of mobile, and will connect us to markets and to people that we have never been connected to. Innovation can ultimately come from anywhere. And in these high growth markets that I've been speaking of, where people have literally leapfrogged desktop, it will be entirely mobile centric. Take, for instance, Kenya, where they have built the most successful mobile payments business potentially in the world. And we are seeing these sparks come from markets and people in every direction. People are building mobile-first solutions, and they are heading towards this brighter tomorrow. And the last thing that I want to leave you with is a point of optimism. That the work that we all do to connect the world, the work that we do from a mobile perspective to make sure that it is faster, that it is more affordable, is actually also changing the perspective and the mindset of people. For example, here in Nigeria, we actually did research with them and found that through connecting online through mobile, they actually feel optimism towards creating a safer and also more equal world. So 3 things to think about. First and foremost, as it stands to deliver with the Internet of Things and its ongoing rise in scale, is that products do not stand alone. Mobile does not stand alone. It is an ecosystem where things need to be connected and considered in order to create the most relevant personal experience as possible. Second thing, consider value exchange. There hasn't been as much discussion around data yet today. I'm sure that there will be. But as we have discussed in the past for the last probably 5 years, and as we will continue to discuss this, we really have to consider the value exchange and the value we're providing for people as technology enables us to have access to more. And the last piece I would say is create for the frictionless future. Create for the world where convenience and ease is increasingly the reason people are making decisions. And also remember that within a local community and in a local economy, global scale and global mindedness is also something that people are creating. So we walked through a variety of different trends. The 4 macro ones I wanted to leave with you before we actually close out. And I wanted to stop for a moment and talk about the next 30 months ahead of us. We have 30 months to get ready. And it's, again, as mobile thought leaders in this room, you're already doing this. You're already preparing your clients for this. You're already preparing yourselves for this. You're already preparing your board for it. But think about using people as the North Star to help convince and dimensionalize for folks how you need to change and twist and pivot your business in order to be prepared for 2020 and the world to come. Thank you very much.